Here on Translating Faith, we're building bridges to understanding, one conversation at a time. Hi, and welcome to my channel. My name is Madison. I'm a Christian. I work in the nonprofit sector, and I'm also an ordained pastor. Our topic today is a good one. I say that about all the topics. It's inclusivity isn't anything goes. Translating why your kids, and those of my generation, seek affirming spaces. In my video about reasons why young adults leave the church, we talked a lot about love and justice and how adults are seeking spaces where where all people are welcome. Not just in terms of gender and sexuality and so forth, but also in thought. They don't want a church where every single person has the same belief or even the same theological idea. So what is inclusivity? In our past few videos, we talked a lot about words that are popular among my generation, especially as it relates to church. Words like justice, deconstruction, and now inclusivity. So what does it mean? This is a definition straight from the dictionary. Inclusivity is the fact of including all types of people, things, or ideas, and treating them all equally and fairly. Now, inclusivity in church just means the same thing, including all types of people and ideas and treating them fairly and equally. Now, I'm not going to go into biblical exegesis and break down passages and interpretations of certain verses. There's a time and place for that, but my purpose here is to build bridges through conversation. So that's just what I'm going to do. I'm going to have a conversation with you. So when I talk about seeking affirming spaces, I mean spaces that validate a person's whole humanity. And there's also a difference between welcoming and affirming. Welcoming, which many churches are, is essentially saying, hi, welcome to our church. You may have to change to fit in with our doctrine, but you can sit and listen. Now, an affirming church takes it a little bit deeper and says, hi, you and all that you are, you belong here. We want you to be involved as all that you are. Now, for some of you who might be watching, inclusivity might sound like a compromise of biblical truth or watering down of standards. But for younger generations, seeking an affirming space is not about discarding truth. It's about finding a place where we can be fully honest about who we are, our identity, our questions, our doubts. We talked a lot about doubts in some of the last few videos. And talking about those things without fear of judgment or shame or, at its very worst, being asked to leave. It's about a fundamental human need for belonging, which we all have. The search for affirming spaces is often tied to a desire to know a more expansive, generous, compassionate, and loving God. It's absolutely not about ditching God, but really about inviting more people to God's table. In fact, for Christian young adults who believe in this type of inclusive and affirming space, we're actually kind of trying to be like little missionaries and bringing more people into the church. Because the more we welcome, the more people we bring into a relationship with God. If we want to grow the church, if we want Jesus to reign among us all, we need to build a bigger tent and we need to grow. Now, inclusivity and affirming spaces, it's not about believing that we can behave any way that we want and that God won't care. A moral compass is still important. Taking care of ourselves and others is still important. We should be treating all people, even those who we disagree with respect. We should not be reckless with our bodies, our spirits, and we should not be putting our trust in worldly things or have other idols. It's not an anything goes theology, but it is at its core about love. Now, I recognize that if you're not there yet, jumping to affirmation is a big step, especially if you might come from a more conservative tradition. So instead, I will ask you this. What would it look like for you to create a bigger table? Who would you invite? Now, I really love this story in scripture the parable of the Great Supper. And I'm going to read it. It's in Luke. We've got Luke chapter 14, verse 16. A certain man gave a great supper and invited many, and sent his servant at supper time to say to those who were invited, "Come, for all things are now ready." But they all with one accord began to make excuses. The first said to him, "I have bought a piece of ground, and I must go and see it. I ask you to have me excused." And another said, "I have bought 5 yoke of oxen, and I'm going to test them. I ask you to have me excused." Still another said, "I have married a wife, and therefore I can't come." So that servant came and reported these things to his master. Then the master of the house, being angry, said to his servant, "Go out quickly into the streets and the lanes of the city, and bring in here the poor, the maimed, the lame, and the blind." And the servant said, "Master, it is done as you commanded, and still there is room." Then the master said to the servant, "Go out into the highways and the hedges, and compel them to come in, that my house may be filled. For I say to you that none of those men who were invited shall taste my supper." Now, it's so interesting to me that all these people who were invited, the rich, the landowners, the well-to-do, it's these people who all gave excuses and turned down this beautiful invitation. And so instead, it's all these outcasts who are given a seat at the table. And we're not told that they wanted to decline or that they tried to give excuses, but instead they came right in. So think about your community, your kids' friends, your relatives, your neighbors, your coworkers, your colleagues, your friends. Who's different from you? Who might you disagree with about anything? Are you willing to invite them to your table? Not to debate or judge or teach, but simply to enjoy the banquet feast, the Great Supper. Remember, inclusivity for my generation is not about ditching faith or scripture. But really, it's about bringing more people in to enjoy the love of God. In our next video, we will talk about timeless wisdom in modern lives, how ancient Christian practices can still ground our faith. I'm really excited about that one. Until then, I am Madison, and this is Translating Faith.